Our next panel is called Building a Top Digital Sales Team. We're going to learn from digital sales executives how to staff and train your digital sales department, what to look for when hiring, best practices for digital sales training, how to arm them with the best sales tools, and optimize inventory. Our moderator is one of our favorite moderators from Range Summits. From the Interactive Advertising Bureau, ladies and gentlemen, Michael Theodore.
Thank you, Kurt. Thanks very much. So I just want to say, first, as a card-carrying member of the Cartoon Character Anti-Defamation League, on behalf of Smokey the Bear and McGriff, we're taking names and numbers. We're very upset with all the negative references that we've heard so far, and we do hope that by the end of the conference, we will start hearing some positive things about Smokey. So I'm Michael Theodore, love being here, probably will never be invited back again, but we have a great panel that will be invited back again. We're here to talk about the one asset that you can't live with them, you can't live without them, and it's your salespeople. So let me introduce the panel first. So starting to my left is Martin Kristiseter, who's the Vice President of Mobile Solutions at Marketron. Next to Martin is Al Pervin, Director of Global Sales at Intertech Media. Sarah Van Mosel, Director of Digital Underwriting at New York Public Radio. Who do we have? Gentry, Vice President of Digital Sales at Radiate Media. And Mort Greenberg, President of Proxi Digital, aka Cats 360, and I think some of you may have heard that they changed their name. So I'd like to start out, since you're all back from a break, or some of you are back, want to do a little bit of audience participation. So we're going to do a little informal survey here. Please be candid about this. Please raise your hand if you believe that your salespeople can talk intelligently about the topics that we've heard so far today. So can your people talk intelligently, whether it's something that you sell or not? How many of you feel that your sales team can talk intelligently about things like programmatic buying, digital ad insertion, targeting, app versus web-based advertising solutions? Let's see it. How many of you feel that your sales team can do it? Okay, we have one, we have two people who feel, three, four. You can't do it. So we have four people in the audience. Now I'm going to ask a question. How many of you feel that your salespeople could have a meaningful conversation with Natalie from OMD? One person. How many of you feel that you yourselves could have a conversation with Natalie from OMD? Oh, okay. Well, Natalie, the gauntlet has been thrown. But I think the point, and I'm sure there's a lot of you who are kind of shy and you feel that your sales teams are pretty good. But the bottom line, I think, is this. Digital is an unbelievably complex product. Digital audio is probably more complex than any other digital format that's out there. And it's not getting any simpler, and it's not an easy thing to sell. So let's talk about the tips and tricks from some pretty successful folks, and talk about the challenges and how to overcome them. So the first question that I just want to throw out, and we can start with Kurt. We'll start with you. What do you think some of the challenges are of hiring and training a digital sales team?
Well, I guess the first one would be is that no one here really believed they had a team that could do it. You know, I think it is a difficult space. It's a very technical space. However, I have to say that when you finally ignite them and make them realize what the potential is, their learning curve goes sharply up. And so I think maybe probably the biggest problem is inspiring your current team. I know we're going to get into, you know, whether it should be a Y generation or the millennials or the baby boomers like myself that are in this space, but I personally think a blend is perfect. When you're looking for people who you're going to hire, you need to be finding people who are early adopters, people who are excited about where the industry is going and not necessarily caught up in where we've been in the past, because that's well behind us.
Martin, what do you feel? You're not a baby boomer. I suppose you're Gen X-ish. What challenges have you found in hiring and training a digital sales staff?
You know, I think the tough part when it comes to hiring in of itself is really tough. Whether it's digital or not, I think it's really tough. Finding great digital salespeople with, you know, 3 to 5 years experience is definitely a hard task. They're expensive, which is one thing, but you also compete against not just other radio stations, but really, you know, Facebook and Google and every startup out there trying to drive a dollar in revenue is also fighting for the same guys. It's hard to recruit good salespeople. Which I think is one thing. But at the core, I think what we're looking for is great sellers. You know, I think whether you're 30 or you're 45, at the end of the day, digital can be taught. Everybody can learn what an API is, what a banner ad is, you know, how you deliver advertising on streaming or online or on mobile, what have you. But really knowing how to close deals and being a good salesperson is much tougher.
So let me, you raised a couple of really provocative things there, and I just want to ask the panel, does anybody disagree with what Martin said, that the important thing, and correct me if I didn't state this right, what you're really looking for is a salesperson first, as opposed to the digital knowledge?
I find, believe it or not, school teachers and English majors make the best salespeople, because if you can stand in front of a group of people and tell a great story, you're more than halfway there. And, you know, from our view, we want people that are truly passionate about trying to figure this out. And background, we found, is secondary. If you've come from TV and radio and at NBC on the local station side, we had 160 sellers when I was there, beginning to go through the evolution of selling TV and digital and multi-platform programs. And there's always a couple people that jump out at first, and you're usually surprised. And when you bring in great digital people, you may not always get someone that truly understands, in our case, the ins and outs of, you know, the radio business and what streaming, you know, really can be.
Sarah, go ahead.
Yeah, I would add to that and say I think it's really important to have someone that's an innate problem solver. I think, you know, you can teach multiple platforms, but when you have someone who's really able to put the pieces together, really understand how those different platforms will work together to solve a marketing problem for the client, I think that's when you've really hit gold with a seller.
So Al, what do you look for when you're hiring somebody? Do you care more about their sales ability, or do you care more about their digital knowledge?
Mostly about their sales ability. I think most people who are going to apply for an entry-level job will be, you know, between the age of 20, 25 to 30. They're very digital. They really get it. You may have to teach them some metrics, but they walk in the door getting digital more than they get radio. But I think Martin made a really good point. I think it's a sales deal. I still think it's all widgets, and you can be angry if you like, but to me, you know, you're selling something. But the issue I see is once you have the salesperson, you don't have the structure at an average radio station. You don't have mentoring. You don't have management investing in salaries that'll keep them there long enough for them to be effective. If you ask a lot of stations who tell you, well, I tried it once, it didn't work in terms of getting digital ads, I ask them, I say, well, what did you do? And it's, well, they try to sell some banners. What's your structure? Where's your digital sales manager? Where's the day-to-day mentoring and overcoming objections? And they don't exist. And I think that's the real problem.
So if you can give an example from your own personal history, what is the way, what is the institutional way of solving that problem?
Well, you have to have a plan with some money, with the right person who will help grow the family of digital sellers, or even the family of radio sellers selling digital. There's got to be a point person right there, or a very close consultant. They need the day-to-day support, how to overcome the objections like anything else, to win. So I think the issue is there's got to be a point person. For example, sometimes I do seminars and I go to town and we sign people up for a radio station's digital offering. We know if the sales manager is buying in, we do really well. If the sales manager is not buying in, the seminars, they just don't do anywhere near as well. It's that key person in the building.
Yeah, I absolutely concur with that. I mean, we go around to media partners all throughout the United States, and the one thing everyone always says, is it because they have a separate sales team they're doing so well that just focuses on digital, or are they doing it with their traditional team? It's neither. It's that they have an evangelist in the building. That we a lot of times misname them. We call them, digital director of sales or something to that effect. Get rid of it. Call them the digital evangelist. That's what they need to be. If you have that in the building in any shape or form that's willing to mentor, you can completely innovate your operation.
I would just add to that and say that digital sort of evangelist also is responsible for laying in the operational framework. You can have a great digital sales team and they can go out and sell really complex things, but if you don't have the technology in-house to back it up when you get home at the end of the day, nothing is more of a dream crusher than to have to tell your seller, no, we can't actually support that because we're not really set up to do that because our systems can't quite stretch that far. So that comes from the top down to investing in the infrastructure as well.
And that, the traditional sellers have the best relationships. They're doing deals. There's one word that really sums up what great digital selling is, and that's packaging. And if you or your teams can package anything, whether it's events or media for that matter, you can sell digital. But to the point of what happens after the sale, they need to trust and they need to believe that the group, the operations folks, will be able to take that, report on it, and provide metrics back so they look good in front of their client. But from a sales perspective, you need passion.
Just quickly, in terms of the learning process, can we run the slide?
Yes, we have a slide. If you could put it up, please.
This is not a big commercial for Zocal. But anyhow, if you look up here, when I got into radio, I did Chris Lytle videos. Who else did Chris Lytle videos? Anybody in the room? Does it go back? Okay, great. Terrific. But that was it. This is a social platform that our company does, and it looks like Hootsuite, but it's better than that and also designed for radio. But the point is, if you look at all of the columns, you're seeing RSS feeds and social feeds from the IAB, from Online Media Daily, all sorts of, there's Gordon Burrell over there. The point is that if you have the right person in-house, there is so much free information available to the manager and to the reps right now, just out there. In terms of every day, there's hot new stuff coming in, teaching about digital, selling digital value, and that's, immensely easier than when I started and we looked at a Chris Lytle tape and did the best we could with it.
Michael, I think you mentioned just the proliferation of tools and services that are out there. That's actually the difficult part about this space, is knowing what to not grab onto. One of the things, and again, I won't self-promote here either, but I will. What we do is what we've really focused on is creating a platform that puts it all into one tool, one elegant platform, for two reasons. One is because your salespeople will get it when your customer gets it, and your customer is not getting it yet. And secondly is both the customer and the salesperson have to be comfortable with the platform. They have to understand the tool set. And I was at an operation in San Francisco, and they had 36 digital offerings that their salespeople had. They literally look like a short order cook at McDonald's. And they expect their salespeople to get motivated by that. Great that you can do it, but impossible as a salesperson to focus.
And that's why it's so critical to have salespeople that are critical thinkers, because they can really weed through. When they really know in their gut what each of those platforms are for, like how they're best used for the client, that's when they can pick and choose and really come up with a custom solution for that client. And it's not going to be the same thing for every client that comes along. And it's a very special kind of person that can sort of suspend package selling, take this one-size-fits-all offering and give me money, and really solve problems for their clients. And I think that's how you build trust, that's how you build repeat business, especially on the local side.
Okay, so we've been up here for about 15 minutes now. We've solved the problem. Thank you very much. Great to see you. But there's a disconnect. There's a disconnect between my original question asking folks, how many of you feel your sales team really understands all this, and what you're describing as kind of a ideal, nurturing sales organization. You've got mentors, you've got your evangelist and all that. Something doesn't compute. Martin, why is it that we're able to describe something that seems pretty easy to do, and yet the reality is most organizations don't have a team like we're describing?
I think it's great to sit up here. You know, we feel like we're running a radio station. Here's how you got to go about and doing it. It's super simple. Obviously, it's very hard to be on your side of the fence. And one thing is for us up here that are selling 1, 2, 3 different solutions to you guys, you know, take your digital team. I heard 38 different offerings. At the end of the day, your salespeople need to be fully educated. And I think that's the big shortcoming. And get educated across that many solutions of itself is hard. They almost need to be certified across these different offerings to figuring out how they all kind of tie together to meet some kind of objective that your advertiser has. So when your advertiser says, here's what I'm looking to do, how can you help solve this? It's not just a Chinese menu where you pick from it, but the salesperson needs to be educated enough how to tie those different solutions together to meet that objective. And that's hard.
Yeah, but I'll challenge that just a touch. I agree, certification is great, but you got to start somewhere. And what we have found, it takes about a half dozen deals for sellers to come in and understand what's happening, at which point they finally go, wow, this works. Here are the steps that need to take place. And we've done a lot of different types of training, but it's not until they actually pick up the paper, they have to read, they have to fill in that cell, who's the client name, how much inventory, what's the rate, they go, oh my God, this has come together. But 6 times, after they've done their 6th insertion order, there's a change. They know the steps. It's like anything else any of us or any of you try. You just need to add a little trial and error to it. And then fully support that with training and yes, certification.
Yeah, you need to awaken them. And same thing. I mean, we do workshops. We do 8 videos of training. We do an extensive program. We quiz them. And they sit in the workshop with the very first time with their client, and their client buys the product, and they go, oh my gosh, if I had known this, I would have invited all my clients. It's like, really, truly, I mean, we've told you this. So it's about exciting them and getting them to see that digital future that's out there. I think that we have really fallen short in the industry of inspiring and training. It's difficult. It's hard on the budgets that we have. So you need to find vendors that are providers that are partners. Because if you're a partner, then I'm going to come in and I'm going to help train your team alongside with you. And you need that. You need that from a time perspective, an infrastructure perspective, a money perspective, from every aspect. And that's what, I think all of our companies do and help companies like you do, is that we come in and we really help train your team into this new space. We're very impatient in this industry. We've spent 20 years with digital in our back pocket. 20 years. I remember the day. Unfortunately, we spent 20 years in it, and we've had one piece of technology, the mobile smartphone, that has completely innovated our industry in 5 years, and we think we're going to get it in 6 months. We got to be more patient.
This may be, I'm sorry, Sarah, real quick. This may be a small thing, but in small and medium markets in particular, it's really important to do proper packaging. And I know that everybody may say, well, of course you do that, but not everybody does that. It's nice to go out with a laptop and show people where the banner is going to be and what the promotion is going to look like, but you really need to focus the rep right into that specific package for the rep to be successful. And that's a basic selling technique that works in every medium.
Yeah, and I would say from the station side, in addition to training your sellers about the things that you have and the new things that are coming down the pike, how does what we can offer work, what are the benefits? Also having an ongoing, regular, weekly, if not daily conversation about what's going on beyond our walls. Now, we're public radio, so we're not involved in real-time bidding, we're not involved in programmatic necessarily, but my sellers need to know what that is so that they can have an intelligent conversation with their digital buyer. They can't have a blind spot when it comes to how the rest of the world operates, and it's my responsibility to sort of be on top of that and bring all that information back to them so that they can speak intelligently in a broader way.
Right. We tell companies at the IAB all the time, just because you're not selling a particular product doesn't mean that your salespeople don't need to know all about it, because they're selling against people who are selling it. And they've got to be able to have the arguments as to why something is or is not the right solution. I'm sorry, Mark, you were going to say.
I was just going to add that, a seller today, the mindset really needs to be that of an agency person. You need to understand really the analytics, the numbers, the reporting, how to give the information